Howdy YouTube. So the old Corolla, well, not that old really, it's definitely a bit overdue for a bit of a cut and polish. Where I park it at work, she gets a little bit of misty overspray on there, so I've came down here to Super Cheap Auto to get some polishing and cleaning goods. Let's go in and have a look what they got. So it's one thing to get a car to look nice, giving it a great paint job, but one thing I don't spend enough time mentioning in my videos is that it's really important to do after paint care, you know? If you just wash your car once every 6 months, it's not gonna hold up very well. It's very important to put polishes and waxes over the top of your paint. It's kind of like sunscreen on your own skin. If you were to go out in the sun, especially in Australia, for 8 or 9 hours every day, you'd want to be wearing some sort of sunscreen or protection. It's the same thing with your car, especially here in Australia. So if you have a look at my car here, it's, you know, it's okay, but it definitely does need a coat of wax over it at the moment. It's got a few sort of very fine scratches in it, which we'll be able to pick up with the polishing products that I've got here. It's also got a bit of overspray on it, so I'll give you a look at that. You'll probably just be able to even hear it. You may not be able to see it, we'll probably definitely won't be able to see it in the video, but if I run my hand over here, you can hear that that's a little bit rough. So that could just be a little bit of road grime, fallout, industrial fallout, because I do work in an industrial area and the car does get parked there for 8 to 9 hours every day. So yeah, it's important to give it a bit of a polish up, get that overspray, get that fallout off, and keep it looking nice. So I'll give you guys a look at the products and materials that I've got to get this job done today. I went sort of mid-range with the high pressure cleaner here, as you can see. I got a Bosch one, so that was around $250. You can go right down. If you want to get a Rockwell Shop Series brand, you can get them for $100, these pressure cleaners. So, you know, you don't have to go and break the bank. For home use, this is probably better than what I really needed, but I decided to just go for a slightly better quality one. There goes my light. And this is a polisher that I've got. So it's a random orbital polisher, so it doesn't actually go around in circles as a normal buff does. It will be sort of like a DA. If anyone uses a DA dual action sander, that's basically what this thing is going to do, but it's going to move a lot faster. And this one here, that was just $100, so definitely not going to break the bank. And for home use, it's going to be all I need. If I was going to be using it in a workshop environment where it's getting used for hours on end every day, I'd probably want to go for a better one. But one of those Roops polishes, you're looking at around $550, give or take. So for home use, absolutely ideal. Then I've gone and gotten a few pads for it. You can see there's some sort of a lamb's wool one there for cutting, and you got 2 different polishing ones. So one for your polish and one for your wax. Bit of a wash bucket. I've got a couple of different waxes here. I've got the Meguiar's Canuba wax. I've always been a bit of a fan of this, but I did decide to get something different today for the final wax. And that's Bowden's. This is actually an Australian-made product here, made in Australia for Australian conditions. What else I've got here is a bit of a clay bar. So this will actually remove the overspray off the car or any fallout. It will remove any stuff off the car without scratching it. You can sometimes with these clay bars get some very fine scratches, but yeah, it shouldn't be anything that won't be able to come out with your polish and your orbital polisher. So as you see here, always read the instructions, but I've used the 3M ones before, and they recommend just using it with a bit of car wash. So I will quickly read through the instructions on this before I do jump into it. And then I've got a really nice looking wash mitt. It's obviously a microfiber, and it's not going to scratch the car. You can actually get wash mitts that have overspray removers, sort of like this. You could remove that clay bar step, and as you can see here, I've got a nice large size microfiber cloth for wiping off the polishes and waxes, and I've even got an applicator, but I may not end up even using that applicator because I do have I like to go straight off the machine. It can save a bit of time, but yeah, some people like to just get that hand finish. So you can just put your Carnauba wax straight over your car just with the hand applicating pad. So what I'm going to actually do is wash the car with this first. This is like an older wash mitt, but this side of it, like the soft side, I'm going to wash it with that first, clean all the grime and grit off it, and then I'll be going over it with the clay bar with a bit of soap and water while the car is still wet. Then we'll dry it down with a chamois. We'll then get the car back in, and I might even just do this over 2 days. So on my weekend, I might like come back tomorrow and do the polishing stage once the car is completely dry, because I don't want little bits of water coming out of here when I'm trying to do my polishing. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so I just got the high pressure cleaner set up. It's worth keeping in mind that whenever using one of these, you need to prime the lines. So obviously they work under pressure and they don't work under air pressure, they work under water pressure. So what I'm going to do is plug it in before I even turn it on. I'll just pull that trigger until water starts coming out, and then I can flick it on. You can actually also, with most high pressure cleaners, you can actually run them out of a bucket. So if I was to fill that bucket of water up with water, or you could even use soapy water if you wanted to clean it down with soapy water, and then you can just drop that into the bucket and they can they can run off suction. But I find most of the time it's just easier to run it off tap water through the hose. So after a good wash down, the first thing I noticed is that the water is not beating at all, and that is definitely not a good sign when you're washing your car. That just says that this thing is screaming for a cut and polish, and it's definitely overdue. So what I'm going to do first up is just use this Bowden's fine clay bar. So I'm going to do half of the bonnet first. I'm just going to do half the bonnet, chamois it down, get it out into the sun and see how it looks, and see if it's not scratching it, and see if we can get some water beating out of it just after the first step, and we'll see how we go. So it says on the back here, must be lubricated with Bowden's own Boss Gloss spray. Look, at the end of the day, I'm not going to use it. I'm not the biggest fan of companies telling you that you have to use their products for the next step. Like, they should just be happy that you bought this one. And I also don't believe that you need to use that. I'm sure anything like car wash would lubricate it. But like, I'm not stupid. I know that all companies do that. Of course, they want to get an extra sale out of you, but sometimes it's like, enough's enough, mate, you know. Well, you know, what's to say? Oh, well, with this one, you must use Bowden's own Boss Gloss spray or whatever. I'll just go and use the next product that you can use car wash with, you know. Then you'll be down a sale rather than up 2 sales. There's a nice soft feel to it. This stuff should be great. I got a feeling. So I like to put a nice amount of car wash on this stuff. Honestly, I'll be surprised if it's very different at all to the 3M clay. So as I said, I'm just going to do half of this bonnet, sort of a bit of a tester. Oh, and I can feel straight away that's going. Like, it feels rough over here, and it feels nice and smooth where I've used it. We want to keep nice and wet too while I'm doing it. I remember when I first started in this industry, well, if it was around, I wasn't aware of it. So if we ever got overspray, we used to have to just get the buff out, and it was a big job. As soon as we found out about this stuff, I was like, wow, man, that's so easy to get overspray off. And I could actually see when I was washing it, and I can see here, there's little white specks of overspray all over the car. I can hear it, just hear that sort of scratching it off. Staying nice and clean. If it's really hammered with overspray, you'll see the clay start changing colour to whatever colour the overspray is. I honestly don't see any reason why you couldn't use this on your glass, your windows. Another option on your windows is steel wool or something like that. So it's still not beating up, it's just in dire need of a good polish or wax. So at this point you can't really visually see any difference, but my hand's just sticking to that, and you can actually at least glide it over that side. It's alright, we're making progress. Alright, I'm just going to do the rest of the car, same method, and continue on. Alright, so I've let the car drip dry overnight, and the clay bar's actually done quite a good job. I'll give you guys a look at that. At the start of this video I did run my hand over here and it sounded quite rough. Still a little bit of stuff there. You can very slightly see a few little white specks here and there, but the compound's going to get that off. So first up, we're going to want to mask up all of our trims so I don't get compound all over the trims. All these kind of rubbers and stuff like that, I want to keep the polish off that. So it is pretty straightforward, just whack your masking on and start polishing. But one thing I would like to make a quick mention to is you might look at this masking tape and say, hey, Gunny stole that from work. No, I didn't steal it from work because I'm not a thief. I asked the boss. I actually walked in there with a $5 note and said, hey, I just want a couple of rolls of tape. And he said, don't worry about it, just take it. So when I was a first year apprentice, my uncle told me when I started working at his shop, he said, if you ever want anything, ask. If I ever catch you stealing anything, you'll never be back in this workshop again. So that stuck with me throughout my whole career, and I've never been a thief of materials and products. And I don't recommend doing it. You don't want to be known as a thief. It's a small world, I guess, you know, and it can come back around and bite you in the ass. So the way I would usually do a job like this would just be to say, do the entire roof and then sort of work your way down, roof, bonnet, sides or something like that. But because I do have a pretty small garage here, as you've noticed, I've got to get the car right over to one side just so that I can work on the other side. So I think what I'll do is I'll do one side of the roof, I'll then go down the side, and then do the bonnet, do the tailgate, and then I'll spin the car around and yeah, do the other side. But all these kind of things I'm not going to worry about masking up because I'll actually run the polish over these tail lights wherever I do want to get all these mouldings and that. Alright, so as you can see, I've masked up all the trims, the rubbers and stuff that I didn't want to get messy with all the compound, and we're ready to start polishing it up. So I did end up yesterday going back down to Supercheap and grabbing some Meguiar's Ultimate Compound because I did notice that the clay bar didn't quite remove all of the stuff that I was hoping to get rid of with it. And there is actually some sort of fine scratches through the paintwork, very fine. Just I think that's just due to me removing overspray with mitts and clay bars over the couple of years I've owned this car. So next up we'll break out this orbital polisher and see how it goes. Got my awesome little chair here too. That was $50, so you can't go wrong with that. I've found that when I do polishing I get sometimes sore ankles from the old skateboarding injuries and even back just from bending over in funny positions. As you can see there, the environmentalists amongst us will be happy with the recycling I did here. That's just to keep the compound off the wipers. Even a bit of recycling there with an old plastic bag. Anyway, we'll get into this polisher and see how she goes. As I said, like for $100, you can't go wrong for home use. You can see we've got a cutting pad here. So usually yellow or white are cutting compound pads, but you can usually tell the difference just by looking at the size of the foam, and the holes in the foam on this are larger than the black ones. So that'll be for our cutting stage, and these will be for our polishing stages. Pretty straightforward with this one. Just whack it in the middle and plug her in and start getting into it. So I'm going to start on the roof for this job. The reason I like to start on the roof is because when you're doing your compounding, it's kind of going to spray a little bit over there. So rather than getting all the sides and the front and back all nice and then spraying stuff over it, doesn't really make sense. So as far as your compounds go, it's one of those things with compounding, like everyone's got their own little system that they recommend and use and swear by. I've always liked anything branded Maguire's, although I've never actually used their compound or polish. As I mentioned earlier, I have used the Canuba wax and I do like it, but this time I did decide to go for something different, just because it's an Australian made brand and it said on the back that it's developed for the Australian conditions, so high sun and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see how this stuff goes, and I think it's going to be good. I've got high hopes for it. I'll pop those earplugs in. I find these things get a bit loud sometimes. Gotta love that tripod stand of mine, it's killer. Good lighting is always important, I think. So I've got 2 polishing cloths. This is just an older one. I've been using for quite some time, so I'll use that for my cutting stage and I'll use that one for my polishing stage. And it's a good idea to separate them. So we shouldn't need too much of this, we'll just get the feel for how it goes. I just get the feeling that that's doing a really good job. I'm going to have a quick look at a section here and see comparison, see if I can get the light on it. So there's a little bit, I can still feel it's a touch rough just in these edges, but on the flats, that's done a really good job. It's one of those things, we'll probably have to get it out into the sun to actually truly be able to see it. It's a bit tough to see from where I'm standing anyway. Right, that's good for the cut stage, I think. I'll go over a little bit more in these edges here. So I couldn't help but just do a patch and do it from start to finish. So I used the cutting, the polishing and the final wax on just this section here. And that's going to give us an idea of what the entire car is going to look like when it's done. Like, I can still see some very minor scratches through there, but definitely a massive improvement from here to here. It's probably worth keeping in mind that you shouldn't really be polishing in the sun. I just wanted to do it on that one section so I could actually get a good idea of how it's going to look. If I actually wanted to remove the rest of those fine scratches there, I would actually have to use a rotary buff instead of this orbital polisher that I've got here, but that's going to be more than enough for me to keep me happy. But as for this compound here, it is more of a clarity restorer. It's not actually what I would class as a denibbing compound. So for those who know the 3M products and Flickr, I would probably put this close to like the 3M burnishing cream or even finesse it. It's not like a fully harsh cutter, but something to just rejuvenate the paint. So it's not going to actually, I wouldn't imagine it's going to remove like 2000 grit scratches very well. However, it may do so on a rotary buff, but just not on the orbital buff that I have here, the little orbital polisher. But no, it's coming along nice. I've just done the roof. I did that little spot here just from start to finish, and ready to come down the side now. It's pretty straightforward with that polish. It's really easy. There's a low chance of actually cutting through with that polisher that I have, because it's random orbital, so it's not going to like spin on one section for so long, and like chances of actually cutting through on these areas here are quite low. Like if you just hang there for like 5 minutes, yeah, sure, it's going to take enough paint off, but yeah, it's pretty safe. Look, I wouldn't say it's quite as good as the Roops Bigfoot. It does seem to have a little bit of a smaller orbit than the Roops Bigfoot, but hey man, for what it is, for $100 man, for home use, it's perfect. It's doing, yeah, pretty good job. So I've got the entire side and roof all cut with the Meguiar's Ultimate Compound. As you can see, it's coming along quite nicely. Even just with that cut, it's starting to get that luster about it. If your paint was much worse than this, as you can see, there is some slight scratches through it, and I think that's partly to do with clay barring it, washing it, and yeah, just over time, that kind of thing happens. If your car was much worse than that, I would actually recommend getting a rotary buff, and possibly even a coarser compound than the one that I've got here. So I just went down and did the entire side with that Bowden's wax, and I've noticed it's really tricky to get off once it goes dry. So I'm not sure if that's because so you can just see even here on the windows where I've used it, it's really, really hard to come off. And you can probably see through here, it's just not wiping off easily. Like it takes quite a bit of rubbing. Maybe it is because I went down and did the entire side. Maybe if I was to do panel by panel, do a panel, wipe it off, do a panel, wipe it off, it might have been better. But yeah, maybe I'll give it a shot. I'll just do one panel and see how it wipes off when it's a bit fresher. So let's give this another go. You see all this sort of polish that's just not coming off too easy. See how we go with another shot. It is a pretty warm day, even though it's nearly winter. Yeah, see, that's still not coming off very well at all. That's a brand new pad I've got on there. So I don't see any reason it should be doing this. Maybe it's just not liking the compound that I use. That's a good possibility. Yeah, I'm going to have to give the Canova wax from Meguiar's a go again. See if that makes it come off easier. Another possibility is that I actually had a little bit too much in there. But straight away you can see that that is wiping straight off. There you go, good old trusty Meguiar's, can't go wrong with it. Oh well, sorry there Bowden's mate. I tried to, you know, give a new product a shot, an Australian product, but yeah, I'm not sure how well you guys can see that on the video, but this panel here, that's nice and clean, there's no smudgy smears, that wipes straight off. And here we've got all these smearies that, you know, I just give that a good wipe, but I can still see here we've got some marks that didn't actually, some of these polishing residue that's not coming off. And that feels really nice and smooth. And this just feels like your hand's kind of sticking to that wax a little bit. You see how it is once we get it off. That feels really nice and smooth. Yeah, the Maguires gets the thumbs up from me. Good old faithful. I've been using this stuff ever since I started my apprenticeship on recommendation from the guy who was my tradesman when I was a first year. So, yep, good old Maguires, mate. Can't beat it. I'm gonna have to re-go over these panels now because this stuff's not gonna come off easy. That Bowden's, sorry. Yeah, polishing is rewarding when it's done, but can be a pretty painstaking job to do because it's time consuming. But you know, when you get to sit back and admire the car looking all good, it's definitely rewarding. Yeah, loves that. Even see that reflection here, you know, you can see that chair just about perfectly in the reflection there. Love it. So for whatever reason the Bowden's is not coming off, using the exact same methods with the Maguires, it is actually coming off nice and easy. So yeah, definitely Maguires gets the thumbs up for me compared to the Bowden's Canuba wax. This panel hasn't had the Maguires on it yet, which is why it's not coming off too well. That's easy fix. So that's this side done. I'll give you a quick look at it in here and then we'll take it outside and have a look in the sun. A little bit of a smear there. Okay, so that's the first half done. I've done this side fully finished. This side of the roof, I've done the back end, not the front end yet. As I mentioned before, I have just done this section here. And there are a few little smeary spots here. It is coming off. I couldn't seem to actually get it off with this rag here. But then a little bit of water and it's coming straight off, so I'll get what I can and then the way I said, the rest of it can come off next time it gets a wash. So yeah, you can sort of see here it's just lacking that depth and gloss through the front of the car there. But this side here is really starting to shine up quite nicely. Loving it. So I'm going to spin it around in the garage and get this side looking as good as the other side. Alright, so I've spun the car around and I'm going to do the front of the car and this side of the car now. So yesterday when I was doing the machine polishing with this Canuba wax, I found that it didn't come off very easy, and I did actually double check the instructions. The instructions on this does actually say to apply it by hand. So that could have been the issues I was having. It doesn't really like to be applied by machine. So what I'm going to do is just a bit of a tester on the bonnet. I'm going to cut it. I'm going to use the polish this time as well. So I'm going to do a 3-stage cut, polish, and then I'll apply this by hand and see if we get some better results. So I've got the cutting stage all done. I've got my polish pad ready to go. I wiped that stage off and I thought I'd flick the cam off. So I've got my cutting stage done, just wiping the cutting compound off. You can see that there's a few sort of very minor scratches in there, but as I mentioned earlier, if we wanted to get rid of them completely, I would actually need to give it a good buff with maybe even a coarser compound too. But no, this is definitely what I'm looking for out of this job. Maybe next time it's due for a polish, I might actually give it a cut with a full buff and a coarser compound. But I'm definitely more than happy with how this is coming up. So now we're ready to give it we've done the compound stage, now we're ready to give it a polish. So I've put the next pad on the little orbital polisher that I've got. To separate the pads, make sure you don't mix your compounds and polishes and stuff. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to try giving this a hand wax and see if we get better results with this Canuba body wax. So just a little bit of polish, you shouldn't need too much. Don't want to overdo it, but you still need a little bit to work it in. Work into the panel. So I don't like to have them on too fast when you're doing the polish stage. Something like that. Things like bonnets I like to spend a little bit extra time on and take out the sides because they do pop more of the sun and yeah, more flame. Yeah, it's kind of like the centerpiece of the car in a way as well. Alright, so we'll wipe that polish off, and that's actually wiping off quite easy with this microfiber cloth. And I've already got a nice feel to it, even without the wax. It feels nice and smooth. I can't visually see any more spots, however there's a little white spot here that didn't come off. Little things like that would have came off with the rotary buff. I think I saw another one over here, or maybe it got picked up. Yep, it's gone now. Good. Okay, so let's see how we go with this balance. Yeah, I can actually see some slight swell marks in there, but they are coming off if you give it a good wipe. It's just not coming off easily. So let's just hope that it comes off with the Canuba wax. It should. So some of these are best used with water, some not, so I will actually read the directions. Okay, so they do recommend just using this one straight as it is. We don't need that on there, do we? Bit of a mitt itself, this thing. Cool. Let's give this stuff a shake up. Don't be shy. Use it up. That's what I say. Ooh, that smells really nice. Smells like bananas. Okay, so they said to give it a minute to sort of let the moisture come out of it, and then we'll wipe it off. Got my big softie here. That seems to be coming off pretty nice. A bit better than yesterday when I was using it on the machine. Okay, lesson learnt, this stuff likes to be applied by hand. And yeah, it actually does say it on the instructions. So, as my uncle always used to say, when all else fails, read the instructions. Oh yeah, that just feels beautiful. Have a look at that. Wow. I'm digging it. I'm definitely digging it. That's really nice and smooth. So I'm actually really happy with how that came up. You can see I missed a little bit. Just needs a touch more of a wipe. Just softly. Just a little bit of that polish left over. Oh yeah, that wax. I'm loving it. Yep. You can see there's a few little spots here I didn't quite wipe off right. you know, a little bit of that ain't gonna hurt anyway. It's actually just gonna be that little bit of a layer of protection. Wow. Have a look at that. Like, the bonnet's not in perfect condition. There is a few stone chips in it. Most of them are from when I drove over from Melbourne here to Perth. I was driving behind a couple of road trains and they were just spitting rocks up all over my car. Yeah, but that's good. I'm really happy with that. I'm going to follow that same procedure over the rest of the side of this car and this side of the roof. And I think I'm going to actually give the entire car a bit of a hand wax with that Bowden's. You can see I did this half of the roof yesterday, that side over there, but there is a few spots where the polish didn't actually get taken off quite right. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it, very happy with it actually. So it's very important to take regular breaks and stay hydrated when you're doing work in your garage. But if you are doing work in your garage, it's also extremely important to drink your beverages out of your Gunman drink cooler. If you are to use tyre glosses, just be careful of the ones that you do choose. The silicone based ones do always look the best. They will give you that amazing shine and gleam that you get from the silicone based products. But if you are planning on having any body work done to your car or doing any paint work yourself, I would avoid it for use like 3 months prior to doing any paint work, because that stuff will cause some really bad issues with the paint. So this is where we're at. The car's looking really nice. It's nice and clean and got that real nice waxy feel to it. It's like really slippery. I love it. It's one of those things that, like, if you look here, there's still a little bit streaky here, so I might have to actually get some glass cleaner and do that. But I'm at the point in the day where I just about had enough of working on this car and I'd like to go and relax. So I'll get back to it tomorrow. Yeah, I got that tire gloss on. The next step would be to do a couple of little touch-ups too. I do have a little bit of touch-up paint for this car. But before we call that a video, I would just like to show you guys a bit of a wet look. So remember at the start of the video, the water did not bead at all. And let's have a look at this. Just run straight off. Have a look at that. So closing thoughts on this job, it is time consuming. If I was to do this, if I was to say start this job at 8 o'clock in the morning, it wouldn't be until 5 o'clock in the afternoon that it had been done. So full detail, cut and polish, yeah, it does take quite some time. But I hope you got something out of it. If the only thing you got out of it was a bit of motivation to go out and clean your own car and cut and polish your own car, well then it's been worth a watch. Another thing I'd like to quickly mention is that you can't just use any old dishwashing detergent when you're washing your car. I actually had someone in the comments section recently tell me that he's been washing his car with dishwashing liquid, and that's definitely a no-no. It actually breaks down the paint, so make sure that you do use proper car wash. Also worth keeping in mind, there's nothing stopping you from doing something like this on a commercial basis. You know, do it to your own car, do it to your mum's car, get some confidence up. Clean it up, detail it inside, outside, a bit of a polish. Nothing to stop you from doing this to other people's cars on the weekends. You know, you could do that for $350 to $400. I guess that's going to depend on the part of the world that you're living in, but if I was to charge a customer for a job like this, there's a full day's work gone into it, it would be $375. So if you come in at $300, you know, that's not a bad Saturday's work, is it? If you did like the video, don't forget to give it a share, subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you in the next one.
Wow. Bye.